And thank you for inviting me here, and it's really nice to be here again. And in this talk I try to cover some of the things what Robin would have told, at least in those terms, what we have been working together, as Raphael mentioned. The title is kind of funny. Perhaps you haven't seen that before. Computational Social Science, Analysis and Modeling of Social Networks. Okay. Well, you may wonder what a person with good physics training is doing all kinds of these things about social systems and social sciences, which sometimes were not considered to be real sciences at all. And but I think life changes, and the society around us changes, and we have, as Raphael mentioned, we have much more data at our disposal. So we can indeed take a kind of physics approach or scientific approach to this data, and go to more sort of empirical approaches than just explaining how things are. So doing this kind of thing means also that you would have to collaborate with people. No, I don't say would have to, but it's better collaborate with other people, because you don't have, as a physicist, you don't have, or scientist, you don't have necessarily the proper training to ask the right questions. So this is also really a collaborative act, what I'm going to talk about here. You can see that people doing complex networks or social networks are rather social and form networks themselves. There's a number of huge list of people who are all, at one time at least, have been collaborating in these issues together. So I want to extend my thanks to all the collaborators who have been giving a huge progress to this field. Okay, the outline, what I want to talk here, is to give a kind of first of all, overview of forms of human or human-related complexities, then analyze human communication networks, then go to modeling of social networks, and then give more examples, what we now call data science examples of sociology. Okay, in there I will talk about demographic data-based ecocentric social networks. That's also a work together with Robin Dunbar. And also, if I have time, modeling of opinion formation in co-evolving society. That was already introduced and told by Julia, so basically I can skip a lot of that and perhaps tell something about this issue of deceiving or lying, which is related to the opinion formation model. Okay, in terms of the forms of human complexity, starting from biology, we know that our blueprint is in the genes, and we have quite a number of genes altogether. I think, I mean, amino acids and genes, we have also a huge number. So you can ask, is the complexity of biology or us, how we are structured and how we function and all that, is it in the number of the genes? So you can take the perspective asking that and looking at from the point of genes. Fruit fly has nearly 14,000 coding genes. This worm, C. elegans, has nearly 20,000. We as human beings are recognized to have around 23,000. So that's not that much more than this worm. And then some plants have even more coding genes than we do. That's our current knowledge about it. Maybe this changes. So we, as a kind of a crown of the nature, think that we are, of course, the most complex items here. So then we can say that looking at those figures, the complexity cannot be in the numbers. Well, looking at the brain, human brain, and its cognitive functions is another example of human complexity. I don't go into that in more detail. I believe that it has been spoken during this meeting already. Then the social systems, we know that there is 6 degrees of separation. So there is a kind of, all these systems have a kind of communication, there is a communication system. Many non-identical elements connected or linked with diverse ways of interaction. So it forms a network. So to look at that, what that network does, it does give us emergent properties of the system in terms of the structure, function, and how it responds. But as I said earlier, there's data available, so we can go deeper into that in terms of understanding through analysis, through modeling or building models, and through simulation, even perhaps forecasting how things should go and evolve. Well, bringing a new dimension to this. There's a claim that ICT, information communication technology, has changed or is changing a lot the social complexity we are experiencing. So in less than a generation, really deep changes in human behavior due to development of ICT, and that ICT coming to the hands of the people for them to use. There is a huge change indeed. In terms of the availability, for example, information and all kinds of other things, it has changed the working, how we work, information gathering, learning, shopping, leisure, and then contacting habits, networking, privacy concepts as well, social and public activity, games, gamification, and so on. So our society is very rapidly becoming a kind of mobile, locality independent, and I would call it Facebook society. Or that like society. Okay, yet at the same time when the ICT change has happened, the this communication, modern communication, leaves detailed information about who with whom, when, and where, through our usage of mobile phones or even fixed line phones, then the text messaging or the multimedia messaging, Skype, the video calls or conference calls, emails, and so. These activities indeed leave behind electronic records or traces of commercial activities, open collaborative environments, e-communities, and games, e-games. So what is there? The ICT generates a lot of data, big data. And to look at that is called data science, or digging into it using data mining and other information technology methodologies to find what is going on. So, what matters? As I already said earlier, the way how the elements or the basic constituents are connected. In order to study them, we need to kind of identify the skeleton of the system. Maybe it's a network skeleton. Learn about the topology at different scales, micro, meso, and macro scale, meaning really the structure. Uncover the relations between properties of elements and the topology. Relate the structure to functions. Describe the dynamic processes and the influencing factors, including the structure. So, going into the social system and studying the social interaction, or the sociality as it is called, we have to first realize that the social life consists of the flow and exchange of norms, values, ideas, and other social other social and cultural resources, and that is channeled through a network. I borrowed this, by the way, from the next speaker, Professor Onnela, so he's also responsible of this, these things. Okay, reference to Dunbar. He's claiming that we form a kind of ecocentric social network which consists of layers. I call them in vivo networks, in the sense that we have data, people functioning naturally in the society, so it must be kind of in vivo. And we can of course do controlled experiments which would be biologically in vitro. So I think this is in vivo research we are to a large extent doing. Dunbar has, sorry?
We did in vitro experiments as well.
Yeah, actually, I mean, they are both elements are important. I think Jukka-Pekka will tell about in vitro as well, and that's a very important development in these studies as well. We can do both. Okay. Maybe you have heard about these, first of all, these layer structures, or you can perhaps believe them. There's the support clique, which is a kind of family or kinship clique, then sympathy group, band, and clan, it's called, 150, up to 150 people. That's the kind of limit of active human relations, which is called Dunbar number as well. It has an evolutionary explanation that our cognitive limit to the number of individuals with whom any person can maintain stable relationship is around that figure. It's not, of course, very exact. And that's also called, that idea is called social brain hypothesis. Okay, looking at the scales of social networks, you can look from the structural perspective. There's the, first of all, the smaller, of course, the smaller one is the basic constituent, or some people call it a social atom, human individual, and then the friendship or kinship circle, and then groups, communities, and society. Those are the sort of rough scales. Then in the dynamical sense, there's the social interaction events like phone calls. Then there's the dynamics of groups, for example, group formation. I'm going to show a model on that. Then dynamics in networks and so on. So in social networks, in social systems, we don't quite know what are the kind of laws of sociality. We have some hints, but in the same sense as we know the laws of physics, we don't know the laws of sociality, at least yet. So then the question is, how does the microscopic translate to macroscopic, in both in structural sense or dynamical sense? Well, we are not totally in the dark, although we don't know the laws yet. So we have these electronic databases, a lot of them, a huge one, which were already Julia mentioned and Rafael mentioned, 40 million individuals and so on, and even more. Then in addition, we have computer speed, and computation has been evolving a lot. The science of complex systems has evolved very rapidly in the physics side, and social sciences have also evolved. And combining all those, perhaps you could call it computational social science, which is really about kind of empirical approach to look at the properties of the system in terms of structure, function, and response. And the answers are going to be found through the analysis of the data, building models to describe the processes of the system, or the dynamics, and use those models to do simulations to answer how the system could respond, or kind of forecasting what is going to happen. This is also borrowed from Jukka-Pekka, from the looking at the empirical approaches to social complexity. You can have a kind of traditional scope, and using the data from questionnaires, but you are somewhat limited in that, perhaps a few thousands nowadays. Then the scope for social interaction is wide, and the strength is based on individual recollection. That has some problems, which is alluded by these few lines here. It has a problem of how to measure how well or how good friend I am with Rafael, for example.
That varies.
Yeah. The other problem in that is that indeed the scale, and the third problem is that it is subjective. Okay, this ICD-based or digital footprint scope using the large data sets. You have the electronic records of interactions. There are of millions or hundreds of millions even nowadays. Scope for social interaction is very new, of course, but much more narrow. And then the strength is based on measurement. For example, how many minutes you spend over the phone with the other individual. So this is the work we did together with Jukka-Pekka, a number of other people, constructing a network from data, mobile phone data set, which is a large one, and we claim that that is a proxy of the underlying social network. There's a mobile phone operator data nowadays over more than a period of 2 years. Millions of private subscriptions. We have voice calls and text messages within the operator, but also from that very operator, because we have one operator, to other operators. Lately we also got demographic data, which is the very interesting thing where you can indeed start looking at the sociality aspect or social aspects of the social interactions and networks. So in terms of constructing this network, we requested that there has to be reciprocity, such that when I call to Raphael, only social link is formed when he calls me back. So the calling has to be going both ways. And we have a good quality of quantifying the link weights, such that, for example, here there are two individuals calling to each other. This person calling 7 minutes to that person B, let's call him or her. And then that B is calling back 2 calls, which is 5 minutes and 3 minutes. Altogether, there's a link or weight 15 minutes over a certain period of time, of course, or 3 calls. So with that, a network was constructed. In that case, it was altogether nearly 5 million nodes and 7 million links. And this is just a small sample, maybe of the order of 1,000 nodes of that. It doesn't look to have much of a structure, but if you look in more detail, it has structure. That there are communities which are linked with strong links internally, and then there are connection between these links, these communities with weaker links. So that reference is already 7 years ago, and of course Jukka-Pekka is the main author of that paper. Okay, to analyze in more detail, we of course consulted with the known literature of sociology, and there you can find the hypothesis of strength of the weak ties, which sort of in shorthand tells that the tie strength between 2 people increases with the overlap of their friendship circles. So the link between me, the social link between me and Raphael is strengthened that because we are sharing many friends like Julia, Roger, and a number of others. Yeah, Jukka-Pekka, of course. I said number of others. Yes. Okay. So we have looked at that and defined this relative neighborhood overlap and looked at that as a function of weight. Not going into detail of the maths. And here are a few examples what that overlap could be. Here is two individuals, this one and that one. They don't, in this case, they don't share any of the friends jointly, so their overlap is 0. Here, of the possible overlaps, it's 1/3. Maximum 1 is maximum 1, and here is how it is when it's maximally sharing the neighborhoods. So indeed, what you can find that as a function of that the neighborhood overlap increases as a function of the tie's strength. So in that sense, mostly the Granovetter's strength of the weak ties hypothesis is indeed verified. Okay, here is the red curve is that when we have weight randomized the network completely, so there is indeed a difference. Okay, you can have a more global look, taking the network where all the connections are present, and then starting to cut some of the points in some order. First of all, in the descending order from the strongest links to the weaker links. And when the 20% of the links are remaining, the network seems still be, at least the skeleton of it seems to be connected. If you do it the other way around, in the ascending order, still the same number of links remaining, 20% of the strongest links remaining, then already, if you can see, the network is not connected anymore. So what is the outcome of that is that the role of weak and strong ties is indeed different. And there is a kind of, from the physics point of view, you can see a kind of phase change. But I don't go in detail in that. Then, having learned about the structure of the network, so then you can start asking a kind of modeling question. And of course, the first interesting question is the spreading of something in that kind of real network. It can be epidemics, biologically based, or computer epidemics, or rumors, information, opinion, even innovations, and so on. And to model that, we have taken a very simplistic approach, which is taking the nodes either being susceptible, for example, to that rumor, and then being infected by that rumor, and then perhaps, in some sense, if we want to see how the thing evolves, if that is an epidemic of biologically based epidemic or even computer epidemic, how that could be recovered or being immune or so on. So there are, in this modeling scheme, there are simple approaches. There is SI, SIR, and SIS, meaning that this is susceptible and infected, and then susceptible, infected, and recovered, and then the third one, and there is a continuation of that. SIS means susceptible, infected, and susceptible again. So what we are asking in this kind of situation is that the speed of spreading, how quickly thing can spread. So here is an experiment, a spreading experiment of let's assume a piece of information which is done in such a way that we infect one of the nodes with the new information, and then how fast that piece of information jumps to another node depends how strong the link between those two individuals are. Then as a reference, we don't make any difference of the jumping probability of that information from one node to another one, keeping it constant. So in comparing these two situations, so in the reference situation, where it doesn't matter through which links the information goes, it very rapidly goes through the whole system. In the empirical case, however, it is indeed much slower. And if you look at a single run, these were the averages over 1,000 runs. If you look at a simple run, you can see the situation which you can localize to different situations. For example, when it goes very rapidly, it must be a situation like this, that it is very well connected, or there is a strong connection, or there are a number of other connections through the neighborhood. And then when it gets stuck, then there is usually a weak link and no shared neighborhoods. Here is okay. So what it means, this is based on the mobile phone data, that even in this ICT-aided human society, it is not most effective in information spreading. So here's a simple example of a 500 individuals network of that based on that real data, and doing the simulation, we have sort of estimated. This is also Jukka-Pekka's doing, estimated how quickly it goes through the whole network. So you could say that on the basis of this, that if you take 500 individuals, the rumor could spread in 4 days through this kind of system. Okay, so far I have been talking about modeling, analysis. Let me move on to the modeling. Can modeling illuminate social questions? How parsimonious can these models be? How can these models be validated? These are the usual questions. So taking the physics approach, or saying that, like physicists tend to say, that arrogantly, that definitely we can model sociological questions. They can be quite parsimonious, and they can be at least kind of validated by comparison with the real situation or the analysis. So models, they are like maps. They are useful when they contain detailed information of interest and ignore the others. And to illustrate that, I picked up a a quote from Lewis Carroll, another Oxford man, a mathematician. The book is Sylvie and Bruno Concluded. So I read it, so you don't have to try to read it. What do you consider the largest map that would be really useful? About 6 inches to the mile. Only 6 inches, exclaimed mein Herr. We very soon got 6 yards to the mile, then we tried 100 yards to the mile, and then came the grandest idea of all. We actually made a map of the country on the scale of a mile to the mile. Have you used it much? I inquired. It has never been spread out yet, said mein Herr. The farmers objected. They said it would cover the whole country and shut out the sunlight. So now we use the country itself as its own map. And I assure you, it does nearly as well. So this is illustrating. You have to be careful when you do modeling. Okay. Well, another quote for a great physicist, truth is ever to be found in the simplicity and not in the multiplicity and confusion of things, by Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, another great physicist, everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. Albert Einstein. Then there's a kind of, which I don't share, let's say, let me put it this way. All models are wrong, but some models are useful. This is George Box, a statistician. So you can have different perspectives, but at least they would be useful in terms of understanding. Okay, here's a model which is also I work together with Jukka-Pekka and a number of other people. We have been modeling how the network would evolve. So it's a fixed size network of a certain number of nodes and individuals. Network is subject to very simple processes, local weight search for new acquaintances, and reinforced enforcement of popular links, global search by creation of random links and random removal of nodes. Then we have kind of adopted network sociology finding by Kosinets and Watts, who found that there is two basic mechanisms for social type formation. Cyclic closure, like forming ties with one's neighbors, friends of friends, and then the focal closure forms of ties independently of the distance between those nodes through shared activities like hobbies. So these are the two basic mechanisms. Here is a kind of listing of the social network sociology findings and then comparison with our model. Just time is running quickly, so our model is based on sociology to some extent at least, and weighted local search, cyclic closure, and global search, focal closure, node deletion, and link reinforcement. And that the model is parameterized in such a way that that we have only basically one variable which we changed. This is the link reinforcement parameter. So changing that, that if you don't have any kind of link reinforcement like here, then a kind of random snowball network is created. Then if you start increasing that from 0, then communities start to nucleate and then form and really form community structure with dense and strong internal and sparse and weak external connectivity, very much like we found already in the analysis study. So then comparing in terms of the local structure, the overlap versus tie strength, it seems to also give out the same or be in line with the weak ties hypothesis behavior that is reproduced, and also that role of links are different. So the weak and strong dies have different role, and there's a phase change seen. So here's a summary of that model. Shows properties of real networks. Network statistics, community structure turn out to be similar, and the local structure, weak ties hypothesis verified, and global structure role of weak and strong dies different. Okay, now let me move on back to the analysis, and that is using the data, the mobile phone data, where there is demographic data included, so the age and gender of the individuals or the subscribers. Well, about these social networks, one feature is that there is an homophily, a strong tendency for individuals to associate with others whom they perceive as being similar to themselves in some way. Then there is some associative mixing by degree in the social network, meaning that popular people are linked with other popular people. And then there is also dissociative mixing based on gender in the network of sexual contacts. This is more what we have been looking at. This is a joint work with Professor Janos Kertes and also Robin Dunbar. So the question is, are there gender and age-specific properties in making human relations? So I go back first to the social brain hypothesis by Dunbar, which shows that the group size in apes or humans, or different apes and different humans, depends upon the size of our neocortex. So, since humans are claimed to be more social than the apes, they have a larger part of their brain for neocortex, which handles the social interaction difficulties and others. Okay. We here concentrate really on the inner circle, so the closest friends. So the data set is the same as earlier. We have 8 million service subscribers, nearly 2 billion calls, 500 million text messages, and in this case we have taken 7 months period. All the calls during that. And in addition, we have the demographic data, gender of subscriber, age of the subscriber, postcode of subscriber. And keeping in mind that this phone network serves as a proxy for social network. First of all, because of the nature of the data set, that we have only one service provider at our disposal from as for the data. We had to kind of filter in order to be able to use these gender and age-related data. So the outcome of that kind of filtering gives us that there are, in this sample, we have been able to study using the gender and age is altogether 3.2 million subscribers, of which 1.8 million are males and 1.4 million females. So there is a bit of a bias in terms of the gender for the male side. Okay. So what is the outcome? Okay. We have given the gender variable +1 to the males, or -1 and -1 to the females, and they are color-coded blue and red in a rather stereotypical way. We could change the other way around, of course. I mean, there's no meaning to the sign, but it's just to handle that. And then we have recognized okay, this is the on the left are the gender of the ego, and then the outer as well, and we calculate the average gender of the best friend as a function of the age. So the first, or the best friend, really the best friend for a male seems to be a female, according to this. And vice versa. For the female, it seems to be the male. So here, the red line is that for the female ego, and the blue line is for the male ego. But the second best friend for a male ego is a male, and the second best friend of the female ego is a female. And then it goes on. The further best friends you take, it keeps like that, like the second friend. So what can you see from this data? Men and women between 18 and 45 have best friends of opposite sex. Of course, later it changes as well. And the second best friends are generally the same sex. Women are more focused on opposite sex relationships than men, which is also seen here in this plot, that this is a much flatter, longer time than for the males. Okay. Then, as for the distribution of the best friend by age, here we have an ego which is a male, 25-year-old. As said, the red are this is distribution of the best friend. Yes, male ego, the best friend is female, of course. And the same goes for a female ego, the male being the best friend by far. Then, later on, at the age of 50, it seems to be changing. It's not so clear anymore. And
It's the wife and the secretary, right?
yeah, sorry,
It's the wife and the secretary.
I shouldn't make comment.
It's like Ulla was saying, he's old, right?
Yeah. Okay. It could be. It could be. Yes. Okay. So, what can we learn from this is that as people age, their attention shifts from the spouse to children.
Oh, come on.
And women are more active in maintaining family relationships. And in that, it seems that the mother-daughter link is particularly strong, as you could see here. Oh, sorry. Well, sorry. There, for example. Ego, 60-year-old female, much stronger for the females than for the males, and losing strong interest in the spouse. Yes, that's life. So this is a kind of sample of that network. Here, it's obviously, we don't know exactly, but obviously this is a couple where there is the man is 56-year-old and the wife is 50-year-old. So there is a strong contact. This is a number of calls between them over the period of seven months, but much more are actually between that lady and another younger lady, which is more than 300 calls, and that is also more than for the son, 20-year-old son. And that lady, 23-year-old lady, is a kind of very strong courtship phase between another 23-year-old male, which we're looking at the data, looking at the postcodes of the thing, and looking at the whole pattern of their calling, we can see that during the weekdays they are calling a lot, but during the weekends almost none. And the reason is that they live in different places in that country, so they come together during the weekend, so they don't have to call. There's another courtship relation going on here between this 31-year-old male and 32-year-old female. So you could start kind of making fiction books about these, looking at these graphs. And here we also have a look at the communication asymmetry, as there is a claim that women call more frequently than men. And that is indeed corroborated by this study. Also, you can ask the directionality such that who initiates the communication. And here, for example, of that example I showed, this 23-year-old young lady is initiating it more frequently to her mother than vice versa. So there's some conclusions to make. Special status for of the best friend. Women are more focused on opposite sex relationships than men are during the reproductively active period. As they age, women's attention shifts from their spouses to children. The life is that hard, but in particular to their daughters. Women in particular switch individuals around in their preference ranking much more than men do, and men tend to keep a steadier pattern over a longer period of time. The data provides strong evidence for the importance of a female matrilineal relationship in human social organization. So these are the basic findings. Now I just skim through very quickly these opinion formation things, because already Julia covered it most. Here is the model, co-evolution model. Here are some of the results showing that when the time scale of the difference in time scale increases, then it is likely that you see communities forming. But then if it goes in such a way that you you hardly do any kind of rewiring in the network, then once again you are in the original situation of a snowball case. Here also we see as a function of this time difference variable, you see a phase change happening. And now, as a kind of very last thing about what we have been doing with Raphael quite a bit, is that taking the opinion formation model and assuming instead of that people always tell the truth, they tend to deceive the others. This is very much of all the Raphael's doing. My function has been more of the devil's advocate, that no, that in Finland we don't lie, and things of that sort. And so in this way developing the model to be more realistic. Anyway, the deception is dependent upon the degree of intentionality. And we humans do have a lot of levels of intentionality. And that is also reflected by our literature. Shakespeare's Othello is given as a kind of grand example of how many different levels of intentionalities we have, up to 5. And then, so in the opinion formation model, we have included 2 types of lying, kind of pro-social lying. You could call them white lies, for example. And then the anti-social lying. The pro-social lying is more or less to protect someone or someone's benefit and help indeed others. And anti-social lying is really to improve the individual itself, or protect his or her interests. Anyway, I don't go into detail to that, mostly just showing the result that what happens is that the pro-social lying, like saying that if your spouse has a new hairdo, let me put it this way, you have a tendency to, even though you might not like the new hairdo, you have a tendency to say that, okay, it looks very nice indeed, because you don't want to hurt the feelings anyway, and you, in that way, you build up the community feeling. So the pro-social lying, the white lies, they enhance the community feeling. That is our finding, and I think it's a believable finding. And then when you start acting very individually and antisocially, then the communities break up to much smaller pieces. So that's the thing. But as a last thing, is that what I want to leave with you is that what this computational sociology means, that we are indeed interested in the structure, function, and the response of the social system. And nowadays we can do quite a bit in terms of analysis, analyzing the data we have. Actually, we do have good methodologies to approach them. We are not completely lacking them, and we are making much progress on that in different ways, building up models and doing even forecasting. So computational sociology or social science, whatever, I claim that it's an empirical science. Okay, thank you.